A man does not suspect that his whole life since birth is a reality show. Today, I will tell you about the movie The Truman Show. It's a show you're being watched for. Everything will be fine. He'll lie to you. Watch out. What's happening? Truman Burbank, the most ordinary person living in an unremarkable town and working as an insurance agent. He has a beautiful wife, Meryl, and a best friend, Marlene. And Truman is quite happy with himself until the very day when a lighting device falls from the sky. Truman does not suspect that he lives in an artificially constructed world where everyone except him is an actor. The town of Seahaven was built before he was born, making it a giant film set under a dome. The whole world watched Truman's birth in the first television show, which is built around one person who does not suspect that he's being filmed. Truman's whole life is around-the-clock broadcast on TV, and Christoph invented and created this show. A brilliant producer, on whose flair and knowledge the program has lasted for 30 years. After Truman found the fallen spotlight, he went to work. The radio said it was a part that had fallen off the plane. On the way to the office, Truman bought a magazine, ostensibly for his wife. In fact, he tears out parts of the photos of the girls in order to assemble a portrait of the only one he loves from school. After the newsstand, Truman is greeted by the twins, as usual, for a brief conversation. They stop him at the poster so that the audience can see what is written on it. This is an advertisement paid for by sponsors. In the office, the boss approaches Truman. He gives the task to insure the client in another part of the city, which can only be reached by ferry. However, Truman has been afraid of water since childhood. When he was little and became too inquisitive, Christoph decided to instill in him a fear of traveling and a panic fear of open water. He would never leave Seahaven that way. For this, Truman's father had to be removed from the show. The two of them got into a storm on a yacht, and the father, according to the boy, drowned. Because of this childhood trauma, Truman was never able to board the ferry. Even the fear of losing a profitable client did not force him to cross the water. In the evening, Truman tells Marlene that he dreams of leaving Seahaven. He wants to go to Fiji, which is on the other side of the globe. That's where Lauren, the girl he fell in love with at school, was sent. However, Marlene does not take this idea seriously and tries to dissuade her friend. When Truman tells Meryl about the trip to Fiji, she also comes up with a lot of reasons not to leave. The next day, on his way to work, Truman meets a homeless man. He realizes that this is his father, who died 20 years ago. But Truman does not have time to talk to him. The man is taken away by random passersby, and Truman is prevented from catching up with him. After this incident, Truman goes to his mother, but she convinces her son that he imagined everything. At home, he climbs into the basement to look at old photos with his father. Here he also finds Lauren's sweatshirt, which he left on the beach the last time they met. When Truman graduated from high school, the producers of the show had already selected a girl for the role of his future wife. However, he began to fall in love with Lauren, whom he saw by chance, and she reciprocated his feelings. Other actors tried to hide Lauren from Truman, even took her away from the prom, but it didn't help. One day, they crossed paths in the library, and Lauren suggested running away from here. They came to the beach, where the girl confessed that the whole place was not real. She told me her real name was Sylvia. Her father arrived immediately, saying that she had schizophrenia, and tomorrow he would take her to Fiji. After leaving the show, Sylvia watched Truman on TV every day. A new day brought new discoveries to Truman. While he was driving in the car, the radio picked up the conversations of the film crew. The show's staff informed the crowd about Truman's movements. Turns into Lancaster Square. Then the radio turned on again, and the announcer said that they had accidentally picked up a police wave. Truman begins to suspect something. He doesn't go to work. Instead, he begins to observe passers-by. He's watching how they behave. It suddenly seems to him that this whole world revolves around him alone. Truman enters an office building, where he sees a utility room behind the elevator doors. However, the guards throw him out onto the street. Then Truman runs to the only person he trusts, Marlene. He shares his concerns with him, and his friend comforts him. Truman's wife and mother are waiting for him at home. They look at baby photos together. When Truman is left alone, he finds a photo from the wedding, where Meryl has her fingers crossed at the moment of their first kiss. His suspicions about others return to him. The next day, he decides to follow Meryl when she leaves for work. His wife works as a nurse at the hospital. Before leaving, she told me that she was going to have a complicated operation on the leg of a woman who was in an elevator yesterday that fell from the 10th floor. At the hospital, Truman gets in the way of everyone who gets in his way.